The following is a Productions original series.
Hello and welcome to Walk and Roll Live. I'm Doug Vincent, along with Addie Rich. You might be saying, where is Eric? Well, Eric, he just is too busy to be with us here regularly. So we're just going to make a change. And really, congratulations, you're our new co-host.
Woohoo!
Yay!
Yeah! From your junior co-host many, many years ago to your new co-host.
Yes, absolutely. Who knew?
No.
Who knew,
Who
right?
knew? Who knew the internets would do this?
So in celebration of this, here I put together a little something.
This is Walk and Roll Live with Doug Vincent and Addie Rich.
There you go. Little music bed that we can talk over.
Nice.
All right, well, let's introduce ourselves. I am Doug Vincent, polio survivor, crutch and brace user for years and transitioned into a wheelchair user over the last 20 years. And what's your story?
And
there?
me. I'm Addie Rich. I have cerebral palsy, which I was born with, and I use a walker mostly right now, and sliding into a wheelchair, kicking and screaming a little bit, but we'll get there.
So have you actually, do you have a wheelchair?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I've used the chair over years because in 6th grade in 1991, when I had my back surgery and had to learn to walk again, I was fully chair-bound for about a year, let's say.
Gotcha.
And then worked my way back out of that. But, now as you age, your body says, take a seat, lady.
So have you updated the one you had from years ago?
It's on its way. It's on its way. I'm supposed to get it in November. I finally went to a seating clinic at Shepherd Center. Only about 30 years between my visits. So, yes, I'm very excited. The purple machine will be here.
I'm waiting for mine, too, which I started the whole process about, 8-9 months ago.
Yeah, that's how it is.
Yeah.
Insurance needs to make sure you really need it.
Really need it. And what'd you call the clinic? What'd you call the clinic?
Shepherd Center. The Shepherd Center here in Atlanta.
But you had to go to a clinic there.
Oh, yeah, I had to go to a seating. They call it a seating clinic.
Seating clinic, okay.
And it's a specific physical therapist who is trained to do all the measurements and stretch your body and see how far you can move this, that, the other, and do all this. They were amazing.
I started with the measurements, and then after 5 or 6 months, they called me and they say you have to go to a, what do they call it? It wasn't a seating clinic. It was something, wheelchair clinic or something like that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, at first I'm thinking, well, this is my third wheelchair I'm trying to get.
Yeah.
So I kind of got that part down, because I'm thinking it's some kind of a training. Then I realized it's really just kind of fraud protection.
It's a formality.
It's a nice way of saying we got to make sure that you are in need of a wheelchair.
Oh, yeah. We need to see your face.
One glance might do it, just so you know. But,
right?
Exactly.
Hold on, just let us walk in.
The other two that I have might give you a clue as well. But I understand.
Right.
I understand. So that's fine.
We'll go with the flow.
It does kind of slow down the process.
I'm excited because it's not a folding chair from Amazon. It's actually going to be fitted to me with a molded back and stuff. So I will give you my time to get the things I really need.
And it's a world of difference. So you're getting a rigid chair.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
I am.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
The performance is just so much better. Yeah. It's it becomes a part of you.
Yeah. Totally. I'm excited about that.
You'll love it. So went to the Volunteers for Veterans comedy show on Saturday.
Oh, how was that?
It was good. It was very good.
I love comedy.
Had a good time. Yeah, I was the gal that is our leader, Betty, who was on a couple of weeks ago to promote the show.
Cool.
She had me be her MC, but she's so funny. She just kept taking the mic away from me, and
you're like, do you need help or not?
I know. I kind of anticipated it, but she had things that she wanted to say. She is great. she's one of those. I wish I had a boss like her over the years.
Yeah.
Because most bosses, I don't know if they feel like it's going to take years off their age if they were ever to say thank you. And it's like, you're not going to drop dead if you tell me thank you.
Every time they say thank you, their boss points goes down. Don't you know this?
Yeah. But she is so great. I volunteer at the pantry, and it's been about 2 years now. And after the first year, she gets a cake or something, and hey, it's your 1 year anniversary.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't even remember it was my 1 year anniversary.
Just so thoughtful.
Yes,
appreciative,
absolutely.
which makes it so easy to do. I mean, you're naturally a helper anyways, but when people are kind about it, it's all the more exciting.
Yeah, nice to people notice that you're making that effort.
That sounds fun.
So then, what else? Went to the Possibilities Mixer. Went in person. They've been doing it for Zoom for a couple of years. And they have a mixer once a month, which is very nice. Everybody gets together and just kind of shares whatever, wherever the topic goes. You know how that goes. But and when I go to all these things, it's great because I usually get a new guest or two for the show.
Right.
Add them to the list.
It's like what do you call that? The networking mixer for when you do the Small Business Bureau or something. That's just another Small Business Bureau.
Very much the same. Yeah.
Nice.
And I got so busy on Friday. I had a bunch of errands that I was running, and I missed the Rolling Start Wheelchair Support Group. I was so looking forward to that because it's just a great bunch of folks. So I'll be there next month. So
Doug is sorry.
Yeah, Doug is sorry. Doug's very sorry. So how was your week? Did you make it to the
working? I didn't make it to the mountains yet. I'm still in my office. We're going next weekend.
Okay.
Mother Nature did not get the memo that it's fall. It's about 85 today.
So did you go through a little cooling period and then it warmed up again?
Like 2 minutes, and then it got hot.
Yeah.
And we need to do some tune-ups to the trailer, especially if we're going to leave it up there, and I'm going to be in it. So I wanted, my husband to do the once-over and say, okay, the toilet works. Okay, the shower's working.
Yeah.
So this week is the look over, and then we'll go. Because I really want the leaves. I go for the leaves, and the leaves will start to change once it hits cooler.
Yeah.
So
they're waiting for that trigger.
So I'm fine to be patient, and house chores. I can't just leave the house like, oh, bye, I'll see you in a month.
Gotta close things up.
Some of that.
And all the dogs go with you?
The two littles do. The two biggles would destroy the camper. They come when he comes.
Gotcha.
So we have visitation weekends, but I can manage it, the tinies, during the week and all that.
That's awesome.
They keep me company. They make sure nobody gets in the camper with me. They tell you when anybody walks by.
Yes.
Yeah.
They save your life every time somebody walks by.
Many times from the trash bag.
Very good. Well, also...
Just relaxing.
Okay, good. Thank you to Zach Wentz for coming on and sharing his story. Now, my brother was listening to last week's episode, and he heard Zach talking about tennis and pickleball, and he was wondering, because in tennis, you get an extra bounce. When the ball comes on your side of the net, you get an extra bounce in wheelchair tennis. But he was wondering, is it the same thing in pickleball? Do you get that extra bounce? Are there any other rule changes, that kind of thing? So I reached out to Zach, and Zach clarified like this.
So the difference between tennis and pickleball is a shrunken down version of tennis with some niche rules, such as there is a no volley zone a couple feet from the net on both sides. Can't volley while standing inside there. Then there's just a bunch of different cool strategies. But pickleball is a fun sport. I would suggest to anyone that you give it a try because it's awesome, and everyone that plays it has just a great time.
And then really the only difference between typical tennis ball or tennis or pickleball is just that you get that extra bounce, right?
In tennis and in pickleball, for wheelchair tennis, wheelchair pickleball, you can have up to 2 bounces. You can hit it off of 1 bounce. You can hit it off 2 bounces. But you can have that second bounce.
But otherwise, all the rules are the same.
All the rules are the same.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you for being the authority and updating us on those rules. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Thank you, Zach. Well, look at that. Now we've got a sports commentator we could go to when we need it. And I want to remind everybody to like, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much. Today we've got Robert Marr with Guide Dogs of the Desert. He's going to tell us all about what they do. But first, we're going to check out this message from Agyar Professional Training. And we thank them so much for helping us out.
At Agyar Professional Training, we know that your greatest asset is your team. Investing in their development, knowledge, and happiness is essential for your business's success and growth. To achieve new heights, it's important to hire intelligent, talented individuals and empower them to excel in their areas of strength and passion. Agyar is committed to transforming your employees into happier, more productive, and fulfilled individuals. When your team thrives, your business prospers. Wise leaders understand that providing team members with opportunities to shine in their strengths unlocks untapped potential. Elevate your team with Agyar Professional Training and witness the growth of your business.
You're listening to Walk and Roll Live, Disability Stories.
Welcome back to Walk and Roll Live. Thank you for listening. Let's start our interview with introductions with our guest today. Your name and where you're from, an organization.
Good afternoon. My name is Robert Marr. I am the Executive Director of Guide Dogs of the Desert, and we are located in Whitewater, California, which is right next door to lovely Palm Springs, California.
Very nice. And any disability status you'd like to share with us, or ability status, whatever you want?
No.
All right. And it's starting to cool off. People here at Palm Springs and coming off of summer. Are you starting to get into that weather where everybody comes out to visit to get the warm weather?
Well, the official season doesn't really start until October, and the official season out here is October through May, when our population about doubles.
Yeah.
In the Coachella Valley area. And but actually last week we had a nice cooling snap. It went all the way down to 90s. But this week, for people who don't understand that across the country, that is a cooling breeze.
Yeah.
And but this week we are back up to 105, 106 pretty much every day this week. Well, that's still cool for us.
Mm-hmm.
So it's only until it reaches about 120 do you really start to say, ouch, it's hot outside.
Yeah, enough, Uncle.
Yes, exactly.
So I want to thank a past guest of our show, Rochelle Weissman, who we had on the show, and she kind of got us together. So thank you, Rochelle. We appreciate that. I want to get more history of the Guide Dogs of the Desert. Kind of like to hear, we get an opportunity here with a longer interview to kind of get into those things that maybe in short interviews you can't get into. So we'd love to hear how it all got started, when, that kind of thing.
Absolutely. So Guide Dogs of the Desert was founded in 1972 here in Palm Springs. It was founded by Bud Maynard, who recognized that a number of guide dog schools at that time, and this is typical with most dog training in general, you typically say always train every dog the same way. And even this is for a house pet. You take your dog to a trainer, they're typically training that dog the same way they train every other house pet dog as well. And guide dog schools back in those days in 72 thereabouts was typically doing that with guide dog training. Bud recognized that actually meant that a number of people who had disabilities or other abilities weren't necessarily able to get a guide dog. Typically, dogs are trained to walk on your left-hand side. However, if you happen to have paralysis on your left-hand side, that would immediately exclude you from getting a guide dog. So Bud went through extensive, retraining and purposefulness about training the dogs then to walk on your right side. And the way that really the philosophy was built then and continues through today is we don't just train the dog for the dog's sake. We actually look at the person that the dog is going to go to. We have a very extensive selection process when somebody applies for a guide dog. And we really try to understand that individual and what their needs are. And then we train the dog to meet those needs. So it's kind of, with a guide dog, if you've never owned a dog in your life and you decide you want to have a dog, well, you need to be trained on how to handle a dog. and you need to be trained on how to care for that dog. And that dog, so we're very much about training the person as well as training the dog on the right techniques and to go forward from there. But it's really more about the person that we focus on. What are their needs? We have some people who like to go, on trail hikes. So they need a dog that's capable of trails and is not going to walk them off the edge of a trail.
Yeah. So is there a foundation of training that all dogs get, and then you kind of start to get into the specifics for each individual?
So Guide Dogs of the Desert is a certified guide dog school from the International Guide Dog Federation. And that is an organization based in England that they provide a set of standards, and they actually do accreditation of Guide Dogs of the Desert. We get reevaluated every 5 years. Last year, we just had our accreditation, and we were, very fortunate that we passed without any question. And so, which is very nice. What that means is that around the world, there are a number of guide dog schools that are actually all training their dogs to the same standards and carrying their dogs to the same standards. And those are very high standards. In the United States, there are 14 guide dog schools that have the international accreditation from the International Guide Dog Federation. There are a lot of other guide dog schools in the country, but they don't necessarily have that accreditation backing.
So only 14 for the whole country?
14 in the whole United States, correct, that have that accreditation, yes.
Yeah, so I guess safe to say you're training dogs for a much larger area than just Southern California or...
Oh, absolutely. Guide Dogs Desert serves the whole country, as well as we have a number of students that are international as well. I mean, we place dogs in Israel, we place dogs in Brazil, in Argentina. We've had one in Switzerland over the years. So, and that's not, the international piece is not something we generally promote. It's generally something that people find out about us and find out about our dogs, and they come to us and say, hey, can you help me out? Again, a lot of it ties back to the unique training we do about the individual and trying to train that dog to that individual's direct needs. Yeah.
Now, is there a common need amongst all of the people you're training the dogs for, which is blindness, and then there are those other needs that they have beyond that? Like, say you get somebody that's blind, but they also are a hiker, or somebody does something.
Well, it's also we have people who have multiple differences that they are living with as well. There might be other there might be other physical limitations. There might be even some cognitive differences. But a guide dog is certainly there and is able to help them navigate the world and move through the world. So again, this is where we really look at the individual. We're a small school. We're kind of a boutique school in the sense that we really try to focus on the individual. Versus training every dog the same way. We really try to make sure that dog is trained for that person's need.
Yeah. And I guess
how many dogs do you, how many dogs do you train at one time?
So it's really quite an extensive process in the sense that, maybe I should just take you through the whole run of how we get to a guide dog. So we actually do have a breeding program on campus. First off, we use primarily Labrador retrievers, and we use standard poodles. The standard poodles are unique. We're one of the only schools in the country that have a consistent standard poodle breeding program. Other schools may use standard poodles on occasion, but we have an actual full-time running poodle program. The unique thing about the poodle is that they're hypoallergenic and they don't shed. So we've had a number of people over the years who they may work in a hospital. They may work in a public facility. We have one woman who is a corporate environmental attorney. So she's in and out of courtrooms all the time. And so she can't be going into a courtroom with a dog that people may be allergic to. So for her, the poodle is really the best animal for her. Poodles are wonderful. They're incredibly intelligent. Some people call them stubborn. I just say that they're determined. They're not stubborn. You just have to understand the type of dog you're working with. And that's where they are harder to train. And that's where some other places don't want to work with them because they certainly are harder to train. And that also means that the person who's handling them, needs to be smarter than the poodle, and the poodles are pretty smart. So, when you have a Labrador Retriever, you give it a treat, it will do anything for you. You feed a Labrador, it will do whatever you want. A poodle, you're going to have to take a little bit more coaxing at times and understand that, okay, it's not being stubborn. It's just you haven't told it well enough what to do yet. So, so it's really is an interesting dynamic that takes place. The
mutual training relationship.
It's truly a mutual training relationship. I mean, a Labrador Retriever will do whatever you want and wag its tail and have a big smile on its face, especially if it's a treat at the end of your hand. So a poodle is a little bit different. A poodle is going to offer you the treat to do what it wants. So that's going to be the dynamic of the poodle. Yeah. So, which is great.
And then is there a selection process for the dogs? I mean, are there some dogs, once, they've come into the world, that maybe just don't seem to have the, the personality for it?
Yes. So as I started off, I should take you through the whole run through of how this works. So we have a breeding program of the two different breeds, the Labradors and the Poodles. We have a nursery here on campus where moms give birth, and they stay in that nursery for about 4 weeks or so. And after 4 weeks, they then go over to our puppy play den, which is where they get weaned off of mom, off the milk bar, and they start eating their solid foods and all that other stuff. And they're there for about 3 to 4 months. And we already start from day one, really. We start on basic obedience. We start with sit and stay and down. We already start at that very young age with all of the very basic obedient training. And then we actually are always in need of and always looking for, and we take people literally from across the country who are volunteer puppy raisers. And these are fantastic individuals that take this 3 to 4 month old puppy into their home for up to then when that puppy's 18 months. But during that time, they're doing basic dog obedience training, but probably much more than you or I would do for our standard house dog. This is no on the couch, no people food. This is this is truly a very extensive training that we put you through. Even if you are across the country, we do it by Zoom, that we monitor and we stay in contact with you. After that 18-month period, of course, we're assessing that dog all the way along the way. During that 18 months, something may show up in that dog's characteristics. There's no such thing as a bad dog. There's just different dogs have different focuses, and different dogs, we call it careers. And our main career that, as parents, we want our dogs to go off to become guide dogs. But as any parent knows, sometimes the child says, no, mom and dad, I don't want to do that you want me to for my whole life. I want to go travel Europe, or I want to go do something else. And so sometimes our dogs decide that they have a strong prey drive, that they really just want to chase birds and squirrels all day. And that sometimes is extremely hard to break in a dog. And so that does not make a good guide dog if you're walking down the street and the dog is chasing a squirrel. It's a little challenging. So sometimes during that 18-month period, those dogs have to have a career change. And additionally, those dogs, after that 18-month, come in and then they start their formal guide dog training, which is another 6 months of formal training to be placed with an individual. And sometimes even during that phase, even though the dog is now 18 months plus, up to 24 months, something comes up in the dog's characteristics, the dog's behavior, that we realize that it's really not the dog suitable as a guide dog, that we do a career change. Where we do our main career change. So we are fortunate, about 60% of the puppies that we have that we give birth to here on campus, about 60% of the dogs that we breed actually make it on to become guide dogs.
That's amazing.
The national average is about 50%. So we have a high success rate because we know the genetics of our dogs. We know the grandparents of our dogs. Our dogs are all that were born here on campus are all AKC certified. So we know their lineage. And so of the other 40% of the dogs that don't make it as guide dogs, they are career changed. And about probably 30 to 35% of that 40% actually go into our other program, which is a Support Canine program. And this is a program where the dogs go as basically emotional support animals or community support animals to first responders.
Nice.
So there are a number of police stations around the country that have our dogs. The Garden Grove Police Department has our dog, and 18 months ago, 2 years ago, when there was a school shooting in Uvalde, Texas, they immediately jumped on the plane and went out there to be able to offer the assistance of the dog with the students and the other police officers.
Nice.
We have a district attorney's office that we work with that has one of our dogs, because when they're doing, victim interviews, very often if it's traumatic incidents, to have the dog there as you're doing an interview, whether it's a sexual abuse case or something else, that having the dog there makes it much easier for the individual to speak about their experience by having the dog there. We have another local police department that just wants the dog inside the doghouse, because they realize it just inside the police house, rather, inside the police station, because they edit that piece out, please.
Hey, man, it is his house.
His house. So we have another police station that wants to have a dog inside their station house. And that is simply because they realize the support and the distressing nature that dog has on the other police officers. Yeah. He reports a time that one of his officers had a very traumatic scene out, and he was quite concerned about his officer. And he actually went looking for him, and there he was, curled up on the floor holding the dog. And again, the police departments really talk about how much it changes their job. Quite often, we hear police dogs and we think that these are, crowd control or something like that. But you take a regular police officer, and unfortunately, they often get bad rap these days, which is too bad. But they do look somewhat intimidating. A police officer with all their gear and bulletproof vest on and their camera and their gun walking down the street looks a little intimidating and a little bit unnerving for most people to approach them when they're on the street. You place them with a dog, you place them with a lab or a big silly, poodle, and it changes the whole nature of that officer. And the officers really comment that how much it really has made their job nicer and easier, that they can go walking down the street and everybody in the world wants to come over and see them with their poodle. So it really changes that dynamic. So it really is a fantastic program that we offer there. And the dogs are used also with the U.S. Border Patrol and Customs. And that's, again, is not for crowd control. It's used for the officers. And because actually of all law enforcement, they have a particularly very high stressful job that people don't recognize, that sometimes lead to high rates of suicide amongst their officers. Yeah. So having those dogs there with them are quite helpful to be able to address those mental health concerns.
So that's what Guide Dogs of the Desert does. They don't get into the bomb sniffing dogs and things like that, right? Yeah.
No. We don't do anything like that. It's purely our dogs are purely person centric.
Yeah.
And whether that is, some dogs, again, this goes back to the selection of the dog and the person. Some dogs only want to be with one person, whether it's a lab or a poodle, and they prefer that. They don't want to socialize with too many people. They, they want their one person that they are, and that makes a perfect guide dog. Other dogs are silly and playful and fun, and not that other dogs aren't fun, but they want to socialize all the time. They want to meet and greet as many people as they can. So those are the dogs that don't make good guide dogs, but make excellent support canine dogs. And so, and again, even a dog that has a squirrel tendency or a cat tendency, that could be a good support canine dog as well, as to where it doesn't make it as a good guide dog. Yeah. The other 5% of the dogs that we have, those sometimes have a career change to just being a house pet. And sometimes that's because there might be a medical issue there that has come up, or there might be something else that just comes up that just says, you know what, you want to retire and just become a good house pet. So that's the other, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's a good career as well for a dog to have, is being a loyal house pet. So.
So
I'm looking down at my house pet dog next year. So
good. So at what point during that whole socialization training process do you get the potential, recipient and the dog together?
So it's people apply to Guide Dogs of the Desert when they feel that they would like to get a dog, and most people, we're always big on people in every line of organizations to self-advocate. So very often people are applying to guide dogs as well as they're applying to other guide dog schools as well across the country, which is perfectly fine. And it's great. Everybody should do they should advocate for themselves. We typically, I'm hedging how I'm saying this next piece. We have enough students right now in line that there's about a 3-year waiting list to get a dog. Mm-hmm. However, and this is where I was hedging about that, it's really not necessarily a 3-year, because we place the person with the dog. When we find a dog that meets that person's needs, that person may have just applied, but they may get bumped up and be able to be given a dog.
Gotcha.
So it really is kind of a dynamic that the person applies. They're told that there's a waiting list. They're told that it's not until we find the right dog for them, and that they may be waiting as much as 12 months, 18 months, 24 months before they get a dog. Yeah. We typically try to do about 24 team placements a year. Is what we try to work towards. And basically what that involves is that for most of the students that we have, that involves that they come to our campus here in Whitewater for 28 days. And they actually live here and they learn and they work the dog 6 days a week. Sundays are off. But it means that they basically have to put their life on hold to come out here for the 28 days. And it's basically, again, some people have never had a dog before, so it's learning completely from scratch. How do you work this thing? And so that's really from scratch. But then even other people are retrains that they've had a dog before. And again, they need to come to campus quite often because it is also, how do you work this new dog? All of us, any of us that drive or any of us that have done something new, when you start, you may do something the same way all the time, but then a new computer program comes along and it's like, okay, I know how to type on a keyboard, but how do I make this computer program work? Yeah. So it's kind of, in a way somewhat similar to having a dog. You may have had one for years, but that doesn't mean that the new one you're going to get is going to operate the same way as the last one you had.
So is there a big difference between, a dog that's a pet and a dog that's a guide dog and how you interact with them?
Tremendous difference between a dog that's a pet and a dog that's a guide dog. A dog that is a pet, you typically will spoil tremendously and you'll let it up on the couch and you'll let it up in bed and you'll give it table scraps and you'll let it sleep all day. Typically a guide dog, you can still let it up on the couch or let it up in bed with you if that's what you want when it's your dog. But these dogs are trained and bred to work. Yeah. These dogs are happiest when they're working. These dogs, a typical dog sleeps an incredible amount during the day. These dogs want to work. These dogs, it's kind of, sometimes we have a person who may be out working and we realized this with COVID. They had to take buses and subways and everything else to get to their job. And that's what the dog wants to do. But then during the COVID time, the person was home and the dog was just not happy because it wasn't going out to work. It wasn't going out to do anything. And then to ask the dog to just, stay and sleep all day was not what they were trained to do.
Even the dogs suffered during that.
The dogs did tremendously. Yeah. And even the raising of the dogs suffered. Every guide dog school in the country recognized that there was a term referred to as COVID dogs because they weren't getting the same level of training as pre and post COVID time.
Do you have a need for more families to foster dogs?
We have a need for all of the above. We always have a need for volunteers. We have a large need for volunteer puppy raisers. In order to meet that 24 students a year, we have to project out in 2 years from now and that 60% success rate. So we need actually 65 puppies a year to be born. So which means that we need 65 puppy raisers a year. And so therefore that's over one puppy raiser a week we need to be getting. Yeah. So we have a real big need for puppy raisers.
Maybe you can talk a little bit about what that entails, how long, and that whole separation at the end's got to be tough.
So I'll start there just because that's the first thing everybody thinks about is how do I put this dog up after 18 months? Yeah. And it's truly what we encourage people to do is if you're considering being a puppy raiser, come to one of our graduations. And when you come to one of our graduations and you hear the personal story of how this dog is going to impact somebody's life, it truly is like, how do I raise 2 and 3 of these dogs to be able to help somebody? It truly is an amazing switch when you recognize. I mean, I will step back for a moment. And one of the things that I find is the most incredible and fascinating is that I encourage anyone with sight to go up to the next street corner and close your eyes and say, how am I going to get across the street?
Yeah.
And you have no one around you. You're on your own. And how do I get across the street? And then to realize that if you have a dog next to you, that you are trusting that that dog is going to safely and comfortably and confidently take you across the street. Yeah. That is so empowering, and that is so freeing for so many people, that they don't have to rely on strangers to help them across the street. They don't have to rely on friends to be with them all the time. They can actually walk out of their apartment and go down to the grocery store and go shopping for themselves. So just that simple notion that we take for granted when we have sight of crossing the street, to realize that with a dog you can still do that, is truly, it's an amazing thing. So that's where, when you start to understand all of that, the notion of giving the dog up after 18 months kind of subsides.
Makes sense. So that's where, so the job of the volunteer puppy raiser is truly to take that dog in at about 4 months old and to start really its intensive basic training. We're not talking guide dog training. We're talking just basic dog obedience training, but it is sit and stay, and it is, but sit and stay for long periods of time. It is being able to be left alone and not bark and not be upset. We have one woman who's a massage therapist, so she needs her dog with her, but she needs her dog to be able to just lay there quietly for an hour as she gives a massage in between clients. So that dog has to know just to kind of chill out during that time and not to be getting up and walking around and things of that nature, just to be comfortable. So that's another training that we put that dog through. So it is, but the volunteer puppy raiser is really more involved with the basic dog obedience. And one of the amazing things that I see with guide dogs or any kind of working dogs, they have, and I imagine this has been trained into them, is that they know when they're working, and then, by their person's direction, I'm sure, it's time to work.
There's a very unique switch that takes place.
Yeah.
The guide dogs, when they're working, they're in a harness. And otherwise they're out of harness if they're not working. So even if they're resting, even if they're in a place of office, but they technically are working, they still will be in harness.
In harness, yeah.
It's only that when they go home and then they're done for the day that the owner will take them out of harness. And then the dog literally sees that harness. It knows it has to change its mindset, said, okay, I'm going to work.
Yeah.
I mean, not too different than any of us do who go to work.
Exactly. Take off the nice clothes, put on the fluffy clothes.
Exactly. We take our slippers off and we brush our teeth and we say, it's time to go to work. And so we have a different mindset of what that means. The dogs truly go through that, and you can see it occur in the dog, that when all of a sudden the harness comes out, they're like, oh, okay, I got to stand here. I got to wait for the harness to be put on me. I'm ready to go to work. Yeah. And so that is really a unique, special thing to see.
Maybe you can speak to a little bit to etiquette when you're out on the street and you see somebody with any kind of working dog, and let alone a guide dog. How should you approach them? And
so the first thing I would give a standard response, which is that nobody should ever touch somebody else's dog without permission.
I'm with that. Yes,
house pet or not. Dogs are dogs, and they react differently. So even a regular house dog, it could be the nicest, friendliest dog. I've been told multiple times by people, my dog is friendly, doesn't bite, and would you know, next thing you know, it's biting. Now, our guide dogs are trained to be with people. They are trained to be out in public. They are trained to be in all kinds of situations. We put them through a rigorous testing of, we take them to training at the fire station, let all the sirens and whistles go so those noise doesn't scare them. But typically if you see somebody with a guide dog, is you don't just touch the dog. You always ask the person, may I pet the dog? And not to be offended if 9 times out of 10, the person says no, that you can't touch the dog. Because that dog's working. Yeah. That dog's brain is focused on working. It's kind of, put it this way, if you're sitting at your desk and somebody comes in all the time and starts moving your papers around on your desk, how do you feel? Kind of thing. So this dog is, you can
start touching your head while you're working.
Right. It changes your focus. It changes your mindset. So it's always, people typically who have guide dogs are more than willing to talk about them, are more than willing to share insights and share their personal stories. So those are always welcome. There's nothing wrong with, asking somebody, can I help you with anything? If need be, very often they'll say no. But it's just, to understand that you wouldn't necessarily, go up to somebody using a white cane and say, oh, what a nice white cane you have. So, and that's their way that they get around if they're using a white cane. So the way of getting around is by using the dog, but it's just, so that's one of the main protocols is you just don't touch the dog without getting permission, and don't be offended if people say no, not to touch the dog. Yeah. So that's the other big piece that sometimes people leave like, I can't believe it. They wouldn't let me pet the dog. It's like, no, that's
that's kind of my rule is that I wouldn't just walk up and touch a person, that I don't know, a stranger. So I don't touch dogs that are a stranger to me either.
Exactly. And that's why I say, even if it's somebody's walking their house pet, a standard rule should always be, you don't go up and just touch a dog without its owner giving you permission. So,
there's been quite an advent of support dogs and emotional dogs now. Can you maybe kind of help us with that distinction? Some people I don't think are fully aware that there is.
That's always a challenge and a great area. A guide dog is actually certified as a guide dog. It actually has a certification card ID, if you will, that identifies it being certified as a guide dog. There are typically other dogs that are used for whether it's for diabetes or for other emotional support or things of that nature. But, the ADA is very clear on what makes a guide dog. And usually that's the best rules to refer to is Americans with Disability Act and the standards of what a guide dog is and how it's certified versus a service dog versus a comfort dog. It's a tricky situation. People very often feel that, they have their dog that they need, and therefore they should be allowed to go where they want. That's not the way the law is written. So there are places that a guide dog can go that a emotional dog cannot. Correct.
Right? Yeah.
Correct.
Restaurants, things like that.
A certified guide dog is not, by law, it falls underneath the ADA guidelines. It's not allowed to be turned away from any public establishment as to where a emotional support dog potentially can be. Yeah. So that makes it, there's a big difference there.
All right. So how are you funded? Do you have fundraisers or?
We have fundraisers. We have a very generous supporters throughout the country that we're always looking to. We are primarily funded by private donations, which is wonderful. People also give us legacy gifts. They leave us in their estate plans of that nature, which is nice. And then some people decide to, give us, they want to see their money working. I refer to it as people not so much making a donation as much as people making an investment. Gotcha. Many of us, we have investments. We want to make sure that we're getting return on our hard-earned money of where it's going. I like to show to people that, by donating to the school, your investment is doing X, Y, and Z, is providing the services to people. We have just as another side story on that, we have one young gentleman who used to play football in his high school and all the rest of it. And one night he was hit by a car and had traumatic brain injury and he lost his eyesight. And so he was still going off to college and he always wanted to attend the college football games, but was always very fearful just because there's always such major crowds and what have you. And even just trying to get around campus, that he felt that if he used the white cane, he constantly was hitting people as he walked, down the street or wherever, that you're using the white cane in front of you and you're trying to determine, is there an obstacle in your way? And so he said, well, I'm just not going to go out in public. I'm just not going to go out in large crowds because I don't want to be hitting people. And so, here's somebody that, enjoyed football. He played in high school, was very good, and he wanted to go to the college games. But once he got a guide dog from us, he said it opened up the whole nother world for him, that in another level of confidence, that he didn't feel that he had to stay isolated in his room while everybody else was going off to the football game, because he knew that he could navigate the whole football stadium and everywhere else with all the crowds by having the dog next to him, because basically the people, everybody just parted. They would see the dog, and it was just, and the dog would stop, and the dog would direct him where to go and how to maneuver through the crowd. So, so that was really just one of those things of, how that ties into the work that we do.
I was going to ask you about a good story, and there you had it. And you could probably sit here all day and tell story after story. Right?
I mean, and one of the things that we're very proud of, we go by what the person who is applying to us, what their ability is, and what it is that they need. And it's very much, I've been asked by people, I'm probably too old to get a guide dog. It's like, no, not necessarily. We recently placed a guide dog with an 88-year-old woman who plays golf every day. And she realized she was losing her eyesight. She didn't want to give up playing golf. And so we actually trained that dog to ride in a golf cart and to go around. And of course, the joke is always on campus is we wonder who's driving the golf cart, the woman or the dog. Right. But it's one of those things that, again, we go by what the person's ability is. Yeah. You can have somebody who's 20 years old and not be able to manage a guide dog. This is a woman that's 88 years old, and we felt confident enough that a guide dog would be beneficial for her. So it really goes by what somebody's ability is.
Yeah, I think you started our conversation, too, by saying you need a lot of volunteers to make all this work. What other kinds of opportunities are there for somebody that wants to volunteer?
Well, one of the wonderful things that people, have a hard time saying no to is we often, when those puppies are on campus, we need people to come up and play with the puppies, puppy playtime. And because a lot of that is just socialization. We want those puppies exposed to as many different people, sights and sounds, to be handled different ways, because they need to recognize that. We've recently expanded our operations we've had some operations, but we've expanded it greater into the Phoenix area, Phoenix Scottsdale area, because one, we need puppy raisers. And so we also need volunteers that help us out there just getting the word out. Every one of your listeners can help and can volunteer in a way by simply mentioning Guide Dogs of the Desert to everyone they come across. And that's a great way that they can call themselves volunteers of Guide Dogs of the Desert, is say, look up this great organization, look who they are, look at the work that they do, and spread the word. And maybe somebody out there knows of somebody who's willing to be a puppy raiser if they're not able to themselves. So I really would impress upon all of your listeners, become volunteers and spread the word that we need you.
We're volunteers, Addie.
You're
volunteers. We'll spread the word.
There's no question about that. You are definitely volunteers with us now. You're part of our GDD family.
Excellent.
Help us promote the message and to promote the work that we do. So very important.
And I guess one other thing, if somebody is, thinking they know somebody, they themselves are in that position where they are losing their eyesight, have lost their eyesight, and a guide dog would be perfect for them. How does that process start?
So the first process is simple enough in that the person who is potentially losing their eyesight needs to have what's referred to as good O&M skills. O&M is orientation and mobility skills. Okay. So that basically means they need to be able to get around on their own at first. They need to be able to navigate and understand what their routes are. Where are they working? Where do they go? How do they get there? And the first step is they can do that on their own. Mm-hmm. That's the first step, because if they can't do that on their own, look, the reality is, just like sometimes you and I don't want to go to work, sometimes the dog doesn't want to go to work that day. And it happens. The dog may have an upset stomach. The dog may, whatever, it happens. So the individual needs to be able to maneuver and still manage themselves if that need came up. Okay. So that's where having good O&M skills. And usually if it's somebody who's just recently losing their eyesight, we ask them to work on their O&M skills for at least a year before they apply for a guide dog. But the first step can always be call our, contact us, look us up on the website, contact our Susan Gates, who's our director of students and admissions, and contact her and talk with her about what does it mean to get a guide dog. and Karen Gates is the person, and Karen will take you through the steps of what's needed and what you need to do, and that's kind of the first step. And again, it's potentially a 2-year, possibly longer waiting list before you actually get a dog.
Gotcha. And sadly, I don't think insurance covers this, right?
Unfortunately not. However, we provide the guide dogs free of charge to the individual who needs it. So that's regardless of the individual's income. We do want to make sure that they have a substantial income, that they can take care of the vet bills and the feeding and the proper care of the dog. But that is all because of our great donors. Each of these dogs, it's from birth through placement. It's about a 2+ year timeline. Yeah. Now, if you were in the manufacturing industry, you'd say it takes 2 years to get your product to market, kind of thing. And that's really, right. People tend to understand, cars don't take that long to get built. How is that possible for a dog to be born and to be placed as a guide dog? It's about a 2-year process for that all to happen. Yeah. We estimate that these dogs cost roughly about $90,000 to $100,000 a piece is what it goes into these dogs to get them to become a guide dog. And that's all done through the generous support of people in the community. Yeah.
Doesn't sound like a great prospect for Shark Tank, does it?
Yes.
No. So yeah, God bless those people that fund
God bless those people that are able to do it. And but it's one of those things that it's when you look at it from the from a manufacturing standpoint, we have to, today we're looking at what's our product line going to be in 2027, kind of thing, because that's what it's going to take before the dogs that are born today, before they're ready to be placed.
Well, and that kind of leads me into my next question. The vision for guide dogs of the desert, how does that change? Or you just kind of keep doing what you're doing? I don't know if things would change that much. Dogs are dogs and methods
dogs
are methods.
And we are at the mercy of Mother Nature at times. There are sometimes we're expecting a mom to give birth, and sometimes she doesn't, and that's always unfortunate. So, our main focus and mission is to be here for the students who are visually impaired, and that's our main focus. We're not here for the dogs; we're here for the individual person. Yeah. And so really our focus has always been and always will be on what can we do to help the person who is visually impaired, and or in the case of Support Canine, what can we do to help them establish better, support and mental health through the use of having a dog with them. So it's really about the person. It's not about the dog. When you say what is the vision is to grow the school, but to grow the school responsibly, that we don't lose that core focus of the unique tailoring of the dog to the person. It is a longer process the way that we do it, but we think it's a worthwhile process.
Yeah, sounds like the numbers speak for themselves. After that 2 years, you got a quality product that you're putting out there.
Quality product, and it's being trained and placed to a unique individual.
Yeah.
It's not all the dogs are not trained the same way, and then we kind of say to the person, well, now you have to match the dog. We kind of train the dog to match you. So that's a very unique spot.
And the support continues. So after you place the dog, if there's ever any of your people need, they come back to you.
We have an alumni coordinator who, she's a woman who is visually impaired herself. She's had a couple of dogs from us, and she works with the students when they're students, and then when they graduate, they become alumni. And she continues for the lifetime of the person, not even of the dog, that she's there to help, because other issues come up, such as ADA requirements, such as, there's a big thing that sometimes your Uber driver doesn't want you to get in the car with a dog. And so she's there to help you navigate all of those things. So it really becomes, in some ways, a case management for the individual, not just on dog issues, but on other issues around visual impairment, that she's there to help you advocate for. So she kind of helps all the students or alumni that need something to help them get through their day.
Good. So anybody listening that needs some help with that, even if they aren't an alumni, can they contact you to get some answers? Or
we have no problem with them doing an initial reach out. Yeah. And if they're not an official alumni of ours, we'll certainly try to answer whatever question we can on the first go around. Yeah. And then possibly in a situation like that, refer them to other resources that are out there in the community for people with visual impairment and things of that nature. There is such a great need in this country, and it is so unfunded as far as helping people who are visually impaired. that it's something that, we keep trying to look at on a different level of how do we advocate and get more exposure and awareness to the need. We're an aging population. And most people, not most people, but there's the greatest percentage of people who start to lose their eyesight is over 55 and over 60 is when people start to lose their eyesight and very often that's through diabetes or other health conditions that they start to lose their eyesight. So as an aging population goes, the need for our dogs and other guide dog schools is tremendous and is really, it's growing. And again, I will say that not every visually impaired person wants a dog. Many people are just very independent and they're fine. And that's okay. That's perfectly great for them. So it's just, we're here for those individuals who feel a dog can make a difference in their life.
Perfect. Anything else, Addie?
Not that I can think of. I mean, it's just exciting to hear that there is an organization like this that helps with independence, because having cerebral palsy, I know how much change that would create if there was a dog. So I'm excited for the people to get matched and
our whole focus is to give that individual independence and freedom. And we actually work very strongly to help navigate that person to remain employed or to go back and get employment.
It's amazing.
Yeah, because now they, just think about a typical office building or complex. If you're visually impaired and somebody's moving furniture on you because they're just redecorating, you may know where the hallway is, but now that hallway may have a desk.
The hallway moved. And retaining your identity.
Exactly. So
and being able to go back to work, or you know what I mean? Right. You've already lost something that you were so used to having. So now there's a new way to give it back.
And the dog truly steps in and truly helps you become freer and help, and help you be independent. Very often people indicate how they don't have to rely on family members as much anymore.
Yes.
Because even a simple walk out to the mailbox, they can do with their dog versus going out, without,
waiting for people. Yeah.
Waiting for people and things of that nature. And, taking a walk down to the corner street just for some exercise.
Just breathing the air outdoors.
Exactly. Just getting out. And, you have that little bit of safety with you, and that it's also safety walking down the street, that people are less likely to approach you in a negative way if you have a dog next to you, the white cane. So it makes a tremendous difference.
Right.
Tremendous comfort.
You're far less of a target, right?
Yes. Yes.
Robert Marr with Guide Dogs of the Desert, thank you very much for joining us and sharing everything about what you do and your organization.
Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
You too.
Rock and roll out. Disability stories. Life limitless. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share. Walk and roll live. Honest and open. Walk and roll live. Honest and open. Walk and roll out. Honest and open. Honest and open. Limitless. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share. Walk and roll live. Honest and open. Walk and roll live. Honest and open. Walk and roll live. Honest and open. Walk and roll live.
That was a really interesting segment and so exciting to hear about other people gaining independence and reopening their world with the help of a dog.
Yeah, absolutely. I felt like I kind of knew what we were going to hear, but there was so much in there that was kind of new to me.
It's kind of interesting, too, us being different, because it draws a lot of parallel for our own lives about, like, what brings us independence or what's a challenging thing. Like, he was talking about the Uber, and I was thinking with the chairs and Uber and, like, how difficult and challenging that can be, let alone, like, having a live dog with you and having them be like, nope.
Yeah, you forget about those things that people just may not feel comfortable with a dog coming into your car for whatever reason.
Exactly. And like being judgmental because you quote unquote look normal. So they have all these preconceived notions about whether or not you need the dog.
Yeah.
Which is probably what leads to a lot of the battle between the people.
Well, I already told the story. I won't tell it again, but when I went on a cruise in April and getting to the airport from our hotel and contacting an Uber and an SUV shows up. Now, how am I going to get to the chair? And it was.
No, that's my one nervousness about the rigid chair, actually. And honestly, because when I went, last time we were talking, I went to my thing in Orlando, and I was nervous about getting picked up at the airport. Like, how was I going to fit my walker? But I took my walker versus my chair because I didn't want to have to worry about how do I even get a folding chair in there. And now having a rigid chair, that's going to be interesting. They say you can do like a wave Uber or something, but I looked, it's supposed to be one that's accessible, a vehicle accessible, but only certain cities have it.
Yeah, I don't want to cause you any more anxiety.
Don't do it.
Because I ordered something and something entirely different showed up, and we just had to make do because time was a ticket, and we had to get to the airport. Yeah,
exactly.
Well, it might have been nice to be stuck in Miami, but no, didn't want to go there.
Not when you're trying to get on a ship.
Right.
So, anywho, that parallel popped into my mind while he was talking, but it was a very interesting showing, even in my own mind, how I don't consider things that don't affect me either all the time. When I consider myself to be pretty cognizant. So, it was a really good conversation.
And they are on our website on the events page. If you heard anything on there that piqued your interest and you want to either donate or you want to volunteer in some way, you can contact them through Guide Dogs of the Desert on our events page at Walk and Roll Live. Also, let's see, the Anthesis Dinner is coming up. That's on October 11th. That's on the events page. You can go and get tickets. You know what? That's not right. I think that's November 11th. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, because I don't think it's that soon.
Change that.
Yeah, we'll change that. It's whatever's on the website is right, just so you know that. But I think it's November 11th. Special Angels Foundation is having a big gala on October 12th. You know what? I could be wrong. It might be October 11th. Check it out before you go. I'm not gonna
go to the website before you believe that.
I'm not gonna try to. I'm just gonna leave all this here and then figure it out. Let me know.
Yeah, I will. I'll go to the website. I'll let you know.
All right. But anyway, the Special Angels Foundation, one of the organizations that I met at the comedy show on Saturday night, they're having a big gala on October 12th featuring a tribute to Celine Dion. So they're having a...
Oh, that's awesome.
I don't know, is that the right word? Impersonator?
Yes.
Is that... Yeah. Yes. She's going to come on and do a whole thing.
Cool is that,
formal gala. Yes, it'd be fun. And then also like to remind people, let us know if you'd like to be on the show or have a good idea for a guest. We'd love to have you. We're always reaching out kind of outside of our circles, right?
Yes.
And resources, put a couple of new resources, Special Angels Foundation. You can find out all about what they do. I know that they spoke a little bit at the comedy show, and the couple's daughter has, I probably shouldn't tell this because I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah,
I didn't come prepared today, did I?
What happened?
What's wrong with me?
You got all excited about a new co-host. Forgot what you were doing.
That's it. That is it. But I know that, and I don't know if it's only, but I know it has a lot to do with cerebral palsy.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, because they have an experience with that. I'm now questioning it because the mother was involved, the daughter had some kids, and so I don't want to say any specifics, but it inspired them to start this foundation to help people who don't maybe have resources or don't have enough resources, to pay for the things that we all know get very expensive.
Experience in this community.
Yeah. So, and that's what this event is about, is raising money to do the work that they do. And of course, they're on the roster of upcoming interviews. So we'll find out definitively what Doug doesn't know, and they will be able to tell us in the future.
We will get schooled. No.
On Walk and Roll Live. Absolutely. So that's all on the website, walkandrolllive.com. Next week, I have a couple of invitations. There's a gal that I've been talking to for a long time, and she just wasn't ready. She says she's ready, so I invited her next week. Whether it's going to be her or maybe somebody else remains to be seen. I was hoping by today I would know, but not yet. So, but we'll have somebody. Trust us. All right. Anything you want to share before we scram?
Not at the end not that I can think of, but I'm super excited to be here and look forward to meeting all kinds of new people and expanding everybody's world, helping people get their names out there.
Awesome.
Funds for new things that are desperately needed. And it's an exciting adventure, and I'm glad to be on it with you.
Super excited to have you here as well. So if you want to send Addie a welcome note, you can write us at contact@walkandrolllive.com, or go to the website. There's places where you can leave us a note there as well. All right. Well, have a good week. We'll talk.
We will.
Right?
I'll talk to you.
Okay. Thanks for listening. I'm your host, Doug Vincent, with now Addie Rich from the Aguiar Professional Training Studio. This has been Walk and Roll Live, Disability Stories, Life Limitless.
Walk and roll life. Life's the best. Walk and roll life. Life limitless. Story shared in every heart. Healing starts to play its part. In this journey we unite, shining with the glowing light. Insight found in every voice. Together we make our choice. Strength and wisdom grow within. This is where our tales begin. Walk and roll life, we stand so tall, breaking barriers, breaking walls, creating space where all belong. In our unity, we're strong. Trusted sources by our side, guiding us with every stride. Empowerment is our goal, filling every missing role. Awareness spreading like the dawn, independence carries on. In this vibrant space we find peace of heart and peace of mind. Walk and roll life, we stand so tall, breaking barriers, breaking walls, creating space where all belong. In our unity, we're strong. Awareness spreading like the dawn, independence carries on. In this vibrant space we find peace of heart and peace of mind. Walk and roll life, we stand so tall, breaking barriers, breaking walls, creating space where all belong. In our unity, we're strong. Walk and roll life, we stand so tall, breaking barriers, breaking walls, creating space where all belong. In our unity, we're strong.